Honorable Ambassador Akramul Qader, please join us at the podium.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Daud Farahi, President of Kean University, distinguished panelists, fellow freedom fighters and survivors, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed a pleasure to address this august gathering of eminent scholars from Bangladesh, Canada, and USA. I always enjoy visiting universities and colleges as I think it helps me feel younger, strong enough to fight for those who are left on their own. Please allow me to thank the organizers for organizing this solemn event for the second time at this university. Today, we are honored by the presence of survivors of the genocide. Nothing I say could come close to the poignancy of your voices, your sacrifices, or the power of your heart-wrenching testimonials, some of which we'll hear in a few minutes. Thank you all for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today to speak for my country, but I'm also here to speak from my own heart. During the climax of Bangladesh freedom movement, at the height of Father of the Nation Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's six-point movement, rising political discontent, following the unwillingness of the Pakistan army-led government to allow Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who won the majority seats in the national elections in 1970, to form a government at the center as Prime Minister of Pakistan, and also the cultural nationalism in what was then East Pakistan was made by harsh, suppressive force of West Pakistani ruling elite and the local collaborators. In 1971, I was a young officer in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Islamabad. Physically, I couldn't join millions of our countrymen to fight off the military crackdown initiated by the Pakistan Army and their collaborators on March 25, 1971. My heart and soul did. I escaped from Pakistan at the earliest opportunity, and once back home, I was traumatized. I will never forget the horror of walking through a marshy land or a schoolyard where one of the many massacres had occurred. For me, the memory of stepping around and over the corpses of my two own brothers will remain the most searing reminder imaginable of what our work here must aim to prevent. Even after 38 years of our freedom, I still run away from the sons and daughters of some of my near relations who are haunted days after days, month after month, year after year, in the quest for justice of their father's death. They are among the millions of resounding voices survivors who touch us in ways that no other words could. The silence of millions of innocent victims still haunts our collective conscience, beyond reminding us of the horror that silence should spur us to action. I'm confident that the ideas and recommendations which will emerge from your deliberations will greatly contribute to the ongoing process of trial of war criminals in my country. I understand that speakers here will touch upon various aspects of the issue, but I will try to essentially confine myself on why we need to have it now and how we are going to do it and how we guarantee the fairness of the trial. Ladies and gentlemen, war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity are offenses against humankind because it denigrates human dignity. That is why every country has an obligation under international law to try individuals who allegedly perpetrated such crimes, irrespective of the fact whether such crimes were committed in that state or not. The U.S. Secretary of State, Mrs. Hillary Clinton, echoed the spirit of the sentiment that we have been trying to address when she claimed, and I quote, "In too many countries, and in too many cases, the perpetrators of this violence are not punished, and so this impunity encourages further attacks, unquote. She made this comment as late as on September 30, 2009, while chairing the UN Security Council meeting on violence against women in warfare. A person who allegedly commits a crime can always be charged until that person is alive. Unlike civil litigation or disputes, length of time does not affect crime. In other words, it does not have a statutory limitation. That is why those who allegedly committed genocide, crimes against humanity, or war crimes, the grave breaches of 1949 Geneva Convention during the Nazi Germany more than 60 years ago, are being arrested and tried. In Cambodia, Khmer Rouge leaders who allegedly committed crimes against humanity and turned the country into killing fields during 1975-79 are being put on trial after 30 years by a tribunal with the backing of the UN. In 1971, in a span of just 9 months, 3 million unarmed and innocent Bengalis were killed and some 400,000 women were raped during our liberation war period. Wounds needed to be healed as the victims had been waiting for justice for the last 38 years. The initiative of the government to try the perpetrators stems from certain basic principles and not guided by any feeling of vendetta against any individual or group. Trial of war crimes is our legal obligation, national as well as international, for achieving twin objectives: to serve justice to the war victims and to ensure a fair trial of the accused. On 3rd December 1973, a resolution of the General Assembly, that is resolution number 3074, was adopted underscoring the obligations of the member states of the UN in the detention, arrest, extradition, and punishment of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Bangladesh is a member of the UN, and it is a duty of Bangladesh to hold such trials for such crimes. Given the above background, on 29th January 2009, Bangladesh Parliament adopted a resolution to try war criminals. On 25th March, the government decided to try war criminals under the 1973 International Crimes Tribunals Act and investigation. Ladies and gentlemen, more importantly, the incumbent government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is pledge bound to undertake this trial. The election manifesto of Bangladesh Awami League clearly stipulated that terrorism and religious extremism will be controlled with iron hand. Trial of war criminals will be arranged. The peace-loving people of Bangladesh, particularly the youth, voted Bangladesh's Awami League-led coalition to power with absolute majority on December 29, 2008, in the hope that leadership would free the nation from this legacy of shame, culture of impunity, heal the wound, and move forward. The parliamentary election had two important salient features. First, the level and extent of voter participation, and second, the messages conveyed through the election results. The voter turnout was as high as 87%, more than half of them women, and 1/3 the first-time voters. This was due to the transformation Bangladesh society had undergone. Women are now more empowered than ever. The youth sees a bright Bangladesh in the days ahead. The voters clearly stood for a secular, modern, and forward-looking Bangladesh against corruption, extremist tendencies, and against the forces of liberation war. That's why they have voted overwhelmingly in favor of a party that advocated for change. The parties with extremist views have been rejected completely. We have also received support from our friends in the Committee of Nations. In this regard, the United States has been consistently supportive. Only last month, Secretary of State reaffirmed this when she said, and I quote, "This is an exciting time for Bangladesh. The December parliamentary elections were widely viewed as the freest and fairest in the country's history. Bangladeshis now have the opportunity to build on this success, strengthen their democratic institutions, and come together around an agenda that the Prime Minister